following story contains events that will test your faith in humanity and show you what true brotherhood means. Before we begin, if stories of courage and sacrifice move you, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. It helps us share more stories that honor our heroes. The alarm pierced through the pre-dawn silence at Ramstein Air Base like a knife through silk. Within minutes, 6 F-35 Lightning II fighters were being prepped for what would become one of the most legendary missions in modern military history. Call sign Phoenix Squadron had been handpicked for this operation, a deep penetration strike 200 miles behind enemy lines. Leading the formation was Captain Sarah Viper Martinez, a 15-year veteran whose reputation preceded her into every briefing room. Her weathered hands gripped the flight stick with the confidence that only comes from surviving 127 combat missions. But today, as she ran through her pre-flight checklist, her eyes kept drifting to the youngest member of their team. Lieutenant Jake Thompson sat in his cockpit, methodically checking every system with the precision of a surgeon and the heart of a lion. At just 24 years old, he had the kind of natural flying ability that instructors dream about: smooth, instinctive, fearless. This was only his third combat mission, but he'd already proven himself worthy of Phoenix Squadron during their previous operations in Syria and Afghanistan. Thompson came from a small farming town in Iowa, where his biggest worry used to be whether the corn would survive the spring storms. Now, strapped into a $100 million killing machine, he was about to face storms of an entirely different nature. His parents had begged him to consider a safer career path, but Jake had always been drawn to something bigger than himself. Someone has to stand between the wolves and the sheep. He'd told his father the night before shipping out to basic training. The mission briefing had been straightforward: neutralize a heavily fortified enemy command center that was coordinating devastating attacks on civilian populations across the region. Intelligence indicated minimal air defenses, a few surface-to-air missile sites, and perhaps a handful of aging fighters. It should have been a routine precision strike. But as any veteran will tell you, nothing about war is ever routine. Lieutenant Commander Patricia Ghost Davis, Phoenix II, was the squadron's electronic warfare specialist. Her F-35's advanced systems could jam enemy communications and blind their radar installations. At 32, she was a single mother who carried photos of her twin daughters in her helmet bag. She'd never spoken much about why she chose combat duty over a safer assignment, but everyone knew she'd lost her husband in Afghanistan 3 years earlier. Major Robert Bulldog Williams flew Phoenix III, a former enlisted mechanic who'd worked his way up through the ranks. He knew every bolt and rivet of the F-35 better than anyone. His thick Arkansas accent and easy laugh made him the squadron's unofficial morale officer, but in the cockpit, he was all business. At 38, he was planning to retire after this deployment and open a flight school back home. Captain Lisa Ice Chen, Phoenix IV, was their weapons systems officer and the daughter of Taiwanese immigrants who'd fled communist oppression. She flew with a quiet intensity that some mistook for coldness, but Thompson had seen her spending her own money to send care packages to local orphanages. She never talked about her motivations, but her actions spoke louder than words. Rounding out the team was Captain Michael Cowboy O'Sullivan, Phoenix V, an Irish-American from Boston whose grandfather had fought in World War II. He was known for his aggressive flying style and his collection of vintage aviation books. At 29, he was engaged to a nurse back home and carried her photo taped to his instrument panel. The pre-dawn launch went flawlessly. 6 F-35 seconds rose into the darkness like silent predators, their stealth technology rendering them nearly invisible to enemy radar. The flight to the target zone took 2 hours, during which the pilots maintained radio silence, each lost in their own thoughts about home, family, and the job ahead. As they approached the target zone, Captain Martinez felt that familiar tightening in her stomach that all combat pilots know, the moment when training transitions to reality, when the theoretical becomes life and death. But nothing could have prepared her for what her radar screen showed as they crossed into hostile airspace. "Phoenix leader to all birds," she radioed, her voice steady despite the ice water flowing through her veins. "We've got company, lots of it." Her radar was lighting up like a Christmas tree in Times Square. What intelligence had called minimal air defenses was actually a sophisticated network of hidden SAM sites and early warning systems. But more troubling was the cluster of airborne contacts rising from what should have been empty desert. And this is where our story takes a turn that will stay with you long after you close this video. If you're moved by stories of courage under impossible odds, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that like button. These stories of heroism need to be told, and your support helps us honor these incredible individuals. Asterisk. The enemy had been waiting for them. Someone had leaked their mission, or perhaps their communications had been intercepted. Either way, Phoenix Squadron was flying into what military strategists call a turkey shoot, and they were the turkeys. Thompson's voice crackled over the radio, calm and professional, despite the dire situation. Phoenix Leader, I count at least 20 bogeys climbing from the deck, and that's just what I can see on my scope. The mission parameters were crystal clear. Strike fast, strike hard, and get out. There was no time for second-guessing or committee decisions. Captain Martinez made the call that would haunt her for the rest of her life. All Phoenix elements, continue to target. We didn't come this far to turn back now. The attack run began with the precision of a Swiss watch. Each F-35 pilot had memorized their specific target coordinates, approach vector, and egress route. Their GPS-guided munitions were programmed to strike within seconds of each other, creating maximum psychological impact while minimizing the enemy's ability to respond. Thompson's F-35 was the first to release its payload, two 1,000-pound GBU, 32 JDAMs separated from his aircraft with mechanical precision. Their guidance systems immediately acquiring the laser designation, painted on the command center by Captain Chen's targeting pod. The explosion that followed lit up the pre-dawn sky like a miniature sun, the enemy command center disappearing in a ball of flame and debris that could be seen for 20 miles. One by one, each Phoenix pilot confirmed their hits. Secondary explosions rippled across the enemy complex as fuel dumps and ammunition storage areas cooked off. Mission accomplished, at least the easy part. But as they banked toward home, executing their carefully planned egress route, the nightmare truly began. 30 enemy fighters rose from hidden airfields like angry wasps from a disturbed nest, their radar signatures suddenly filling the sky. These weren't the aging Soviet-era aircraft that intelligence had predicted. These were modern, capable fighters, flown by pilots who clearly knew their business. Captain Martinez's years of experience kicked in as she barked orders over the radio. Phoenix Squadron, we are defensive. Execute evasive pattern Delta and prepare for air-to-air combat. The first missile launch lit up Lieutenant Commander Davis's threat warning system like a pinball machine. Phoenix 2, defending, she called out, deploying chaff and flares while pulling her F-35 into a punishing 7G turn. The enemy missile streaked past her canopy close enough that she could read the Cyrillic writing on its warhead. Phoenix 4 is hit! Captain Chen's voice crackled over the radio, strained but controlled. Hydraulics failing, but I've got backup systems. I can make it home. Phoenix 3, taking heavy fire, Major Williams called out, his normally steady voice tight with concentration. His F-35 was trailing smoke from its left engine, but the tough bird was still flying. The mathematics of aerial combat are brutally simple. Phoenix Squadron was outnumbered 6-1. They were 180 miles from friendly airspace, and they were running low on both fuel and ammunition. Their pursuers, on the other hand, were fresh, fully armed, and operating over their home territory, with the advantage of ground-based radar and missile support. That's when Lieutenant Thompson made the calculation that would echo through military history and break the hearts of everyone who heard this story. Phoenix Leader, his voice came over the radio, calm and clear despite the chaos erupting around them. I'm showing full fuel and a full weapons load. Captain Martinez knew exactly what he was thinking before he spoke another word. She'd seen that look in young pilots' eyes before, the moment when mathematics and duty collide with self-preservation, and duty wins. Negative, rookie. We stick together. That's how Phoenix Squadron operates. Ma'am, with all due respect, you know the math as well as I do. 5 of you might make it home if someone draws them off. All 6 of us won't make it if we stay together. The radio fell silent, except for the electronic chirping of threat warning systems and the heavy breathing of pilots pulling G-forces that would crush a normal person. Each member of Phoenix Squadron understood the terrible logic of Thompson's assessment. Thompson's F-35 suddenly broke formation, banking hard toward the pursuing enemy fighters. For a moment, his voice lost its professional composure, revealing the young man from Iowa who missed his mother's apple pie and his father's terrible jokes about crop yields. Tell my mom I was thinking about her apple pie when this happened. Thompson, get back in formation. That's a direct order. Sorry, Captain. Some orders aren't meant to be followed. Some things are bigger than orders. I have to pause here, because this is the part of the story that breaks my heart every single time I tell it. If you're feeling that same emotion, if you're realizing what this young man is about to do, Please show your support by subscribing and hitting that like button. These heroes deserve to be remembered, and your support helps ensure their stories live on. Asterisk. What happened in the next 4 minutes lasted longer than most people's entire military careers in terms of courage and sacrifice. Thompson dove into the enemy formation like a man possessed, his F-35 dancing through missile fire that should have vaporized him 10 times over. He wasn't trying to win an impossible fight. He was trying to buy time, distance, and most importantly, the lives of his squadron mates. His first missile found its target, an enemy fighter that had been closing in on Captain Chen's damaged aircraft. The explosion sent shockwaves through the enemy formation, causing them to break their disciplined attack pattern and focus their attention on this lone American who dared to challenge them. Thompson's second missile took out the enemy flight leader, a move that sent the remaining fighters into disarray as they struggled to reorganize their attack. But 30-1 odds are insurmountable, no matter how skilled or determined the pilot. "Phoenix Squadron, you are clear for egress," came Thompson's voice over the radio, now strained as G-forces tore at his body while he maneuvered to avoid the incoming missiles. "It's been the greatest honor of my life flying with you." The enemy had taken his bait completely. Every single hostile fighter had turned to engage this audacious American who had the nerve to attack them head-on. This left the rest of Phoenix Squadron a clear path toward friendly airspace, though the cost of that path would haunt them forever. Captain Martinez made the hardest decision of her 15-year military career. With tears streaming down her face inside her oxygen mask, she honored Thompson's sacrifice by leading her remaining pilots towards safety, even as her heart shattered listening to his final transmissions. Thompson's voice came over the radio one last time. Calm now, almost peaceful. "Phoenix leader, tell everyone back home. Tell them we got the job done. Tell them the mission was a success. And tell them," static filled the channel for a moment as another missile exploded dangerously close to his aircraft. "Tell them that some things really are worth dying for." His F-35 was burning now, hydraulic fluid streaming from dozens of puncture wounds in the aircraft's skin. His left engine was gone, and his right was running on fumes. But still he fought, drawing enemy fire away from his escaping squadron mates with each desperate maneuver. Lieutenant Jake Thompson's F-35 disappeared from radar at 064, 7 hours local time, taking with it one of the bravest souls ever to slip the surly bonds of Earth. But his sacrifice echoed far beyond that terrible morning. His actions didn't just save 5 lives that day. They saved the lives of countless civilians who would have continued to suffer under the enemy command structure he had helped destroy. The remaining members of Phoenix Squadron made it home, landing at their base with heavy hearts and empty fuel tanks. The mission was classified as a complete success from a tactical standpoint, but for those who flew it, victory tasted like ashes. At Thompson's memorial service 3 weeks later, Captain Martinez stood before a crowd of thousands, military personnel, government officials, and ordinary citizens whose lives had been touched by his sacrifice. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the emotion she felt. Jake Thompson flew 3 combat missions in his short but brilliant career. On his first mission, he provided close air support that saved an elementary school full of children. On his second, he protected a field hospital from enemy attack. On his third and final mission, he saved his brothers and sisters in arms, ensuring that they could return home to their own families. Some people live 100 years and never save a single life. Jake Thompson saved hundreds of lives in just 3 flights. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, before continuing. But Jake wasn't a superhero from a comic book. He was a farm boy from Iowa who loved apple pie, complained about the coffee in the mess hall, and called his mom every Sunday. He was scared that last morning. We all were. But he did what was right anyway, because that's what heroes do. They don't act because they're not afraid. They act despite being afraid. The investigation into the mission revealed that enemy intelligence services had indeed intercepted communications about Phoenix Squadron's planned strike. The ambush had been carefully planned, with the enemy hoping to capture or kill American pilots for propaganda purposes. Instead, they had given the world a demonstration of what American military personnel are capable of when duty calls. As we approach the end of this incredible story, I want you to think about the people in your own life who would make such a sacrifice. The friends, family members, or even complete strangers who represent the same spirit that Jake Thompson showed that morning. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that heroes still walk among us in our uncertain world, please subscribe and hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right, even when fear threatens to paralyze you. Asterisk. The F-35 program now includes what's officially known as the Thompson Protocol, a tactical doctrine that provides specific guidance for single aircraft diversionary actions in overwhelming odds. Situations. The protocol emphasizes that such tactics should only be employed when no other options exist, and when the tactical situation provides a reasonable chance of success for the primary mission. But the Thompson Protocol represents something much more important than tactical doctrine. It serves as a reminder that every pilot who straps on a helmet and climbs into a cockpit carries with them the knowledge that when the ultimate moment comes, they too might be called upon to prove that some things are indeed worth dying for. The enemy command center that Phoenix Squadron destroyed that morning had been responsible for coordinating attacks that had killed over 3,000 civilians in the previous 6 months. Its destruction disrupted enemy operations across the entire region, saving countless innocent lives. Jake Thompson's sacrifice ensured that mission's success, but more importantly, it demonstrated to the world that there are still people willing to give everything for something greater than themselves. Lieutenant Jake Thompson was 24 years old when he made the ultimate sacrifice. His parents received the Medal of Honor on his behalf, but they say the real honor belongs to everyone who remembers his story and carries forward his example. His story reminds us that heroes aren't born with special powers or divine protection. They're forged in moments when everything hangs in the balance and someone has to make the impossible choice between self-preservation and service to others. In a world that sometimes seems to have forgotten the meaning of sacrifice and service, Jake Thompson's story serves as a beacon of hope. It reminds us that courage still exists, that honor still matters, and that there are still people willing to give everything so that others might live free. That's all for today's story, but Jake Thompson's legacy lives on in every pilot who takes to the skies, every service member who puts on a uniform, and every person who chooses to serve something greater than themselves. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, hit that like button, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, remember that heroes walk among us every single day. We just don't always recognize them until they're called upon to prove it. Lieutenant Jake Thompson, 24 years old, farm boy from Iowa, hero for the ages. His story proves that sometimes the greatest among us are the ones who never expected to be great at all.